The story begins at Wasabiyama High School during freshman orientation. New students are warmly welcomed, and the school proudly shows off its lively club culture. Senior students eagerly call out to freshmen, promoting various clubs, including tennis, volleyball, and soccer. The area is loud and full of energy, with promises of growth, challenges, and unforgettable high school memories. Amid all this excitement, one student sits quietly with a calm, neutral expression. He has no idea that a small encounter is about to change the course of his everyday life. As Shun walks through the corridor, several seniors stop him. They quickly notice his height and surround him, immediately seeing potential. They recruit him to join a soccer club, as his height could be an asset for their team. One of them recognizes him as the former middle school soccer star who earned consecutive MVP titles, and excitement spreads among them. The discussion flies as they wonder why someone with his reputation chose this school and whether he plans to revive their weak teams. Our cute MC calmly explains that a leg injury has ended his soccer career, making it impossible for him to join any sports clubs. The seniors are left stunned and apologetic, and Tallboy quietly excuses himself. However, the situation repeats itself almost immediately. Another group approaches him for basketball, followed by more invitations from different clubs. He feels a wave of frustration and wonders how many times he has to repeat the same explanation to everyone around him. While standing there, he notices a girl nearby watching him quietly, her small figure making her look oddly like a little penguin observing from the sidelines. He lowers his head in defeat, and the thought slips out that he just wants to go home. The girl immediately reacts and looks up at him with interest. She raises her hand, but it still does not reach his head, and she casually points out how tall he is. To her, his height makes him perfectly suited for something called the Going Home Club. He starts to say that he cannot join any clubs, but suddenly realizes what she is talking about and freezes, confused at the idea of a club meant for going home. Before he can question it further, she hands him a sheet of paper. The form is a club registration form with Hyper Go Home Club already written on it. He reads the words in silence, unable to understand what Hyper has to do with going home or what kind of club this even is. When she cheerfully explains that the activity is simply going home, he is left stunned, wondering if something like that can really count as a club. Nearby, a guy panics the moment he sees her handing out the form again, clearly fed up with her behavior. Completely unfazed, the girl cheerfully greets him, treating the situation like it is perfectly normal. The senior boy loudly criticizes the strange poster she put up, staring at it like it is something unsettling and even mistaking it for some kind of bug. He firmly insists that going home does not qualify as a club activity, no matter how many times it is brought up. Hearing this, the girl visibly droops, clearly hurt, as she thinks about the effort she put into making it. The atmosphere turns awkward, and the MC quietly realizes that it truly is not recognized as a real club after all. She falls silent for a moment, then suddenly brightens up and casually tells him that she will wait for him at the school gate after classes. The words catch him off guard, and before he can fully process them, she waves lightly and leaves. He instinctively tries to stop her, but a senior immediately scolds her for moving too slowly and warns her about running in the hallway. Despite that, she continues at her usual sluggish pace, making it difficult to tell whether she is even running at all. Watching her go, the MC is left confused, wondering what she meant by waiting for him. The senior turns to our lad and asks if that strange girl just tried to recruit him. He confirms it with some hesitation, and the senior bluntly advises him to refuse her without hesitation. The MC agrees that he planned to do exactly that, though he cannot help but wonder what is actually wrong with her. The senior then explains that she is known for packing up before classes end, leaving before the bell rings, and constantly mumbling about wanting to go home. She belongs to Class 2B, is named Naoki Satu, and is commonly called Choki-chan. She even went as far as declaring herself a member of the so-called Hyper Go Home Club, earning a reputation as a troublemaker. The senior strongly advises keeping a safe distance from her. After briefly reflecting that high school is full of all kinds of people, the senior immediately shifts gears and once again tries to recruit Satu for the basketball club, clearly unwilling to give up. As the school day ends, Satu heads toward the exit and is surprised to find her already standing there, clearly waiting. The moment she spots him, her eyes sparkle with excitement, as if she truly did not expect him to show up. He quickly realizes there is a misunderstanding and thinks to himself that this is simply the only route home for him, nothing more. Still, she looks genuinely happy and seems almost touched, treating this as a rare victory since no one has ever come willingly before. Her reaction leaves him slightly baffled. She blushes a little, laughs softly, and naturally assumes they will head home together again today. He freezes for a second, then quietly starts walking in a different direction, Feeling like he has accidentally gotten himself involved with a strange person, she immediately points him the other way, confidently leading the route, even though it clearly does not match the path to the station. He hesitates but eventually gives in, deciding to humor her just for the day. Meanwhile, she walks ahead with a carefree, almost princess-like bounce, casually acting as if she has nothing important waiting for her at home anyway. Their odd walk is interrupted when she suddenly notices a wooden stick lying nearby. She picks it up without hesitation and treats it like a treasured discovery, proudly declaring it to be a fine sword. Satu stares at it in disbelief, unable to see anything but a random stick. She swings it around enthusiastically, completely convinced of its value, and happily adds it to what she calls her collection before announcing that she has something else she wants to show him. She then leads him to a spot where several wooden sticks and random items are piled together. To our guy, it looks exactly like a small trash dump, but she immediately takes offense at that thought and confidently labels it her personal arsenal. Shun struggles to process the situation, staring at the pile in silence, wondering when and how she managed to bring all of this here, questioning what kind of person casually stores branches like treasured weapons on the way home. He stares at the pile again and realizes just how many branches are stacked there, while she calmly explains that the longer and sturdier a branch is, the better it works as a sword. She proudly points to a tough-looking stone, as if it were something precious, then moves on to a rare shield she claims to have found the day after a typhoon. After carefully comparing her options, she confidently chooses which sword to take. Shun tries to interrupt and explain that it is all just trash, but before he can finish, his attention is caught by a notice board on a nearby fence. The notice clearly calls out a Satu from Class 2B, warning that personal items must not be left around the school grounds and ordering the cleanup of stashed tree branches within a month. It is neatly signed by the Wasabiyama High School Student Council. He points out that the notice mentions her by name and silently watches her reaction. She goes quiet. Even though Satu is a common surname, he thinks there is no way she can pretend it is not about her when it is written so plainly. Just then, two passing students recognize her voice and joke about whether she has come back to collect trash again. She panics and quickly pulls Shun aside to hide, whispering that the student council is nearby. Before he can fully process what is happening, the student council boys arrive, glance around, and complain that she still has not cleaned up her mess. Once they leave, the MC wonders how he ended up getting dragged into her problems. Naoki, on the other hand, casually treats herself as their enemy and even warns him to be careful. Sidekick Shun quietly insists he is not on her side, but she ignores that completely. She peeks out to make sure they are gone, then suddenly spots something else and excitedly calls him over again. She picks up a faded item from the ground and realizes it is a student handbook. Her face lights up as if she has found treasure, which completely confuses him. She flips through it without hesitation and finds a movie ticket stub, then points out that there is no student ID inside. Continuing to rummage, she discovers an old love letter decorated with cherry blossoms, dated 4 years ago, with 2 letters tucked inside. She starts imagining that the owner watched the movie as a couple and secretly met here, while the MC watches in silence, unsure how to respond. After a moment, she casually decides to leave everything where it is, calling it a relic of someone's youth. He questions that choice, wondering why they would not turn it in and why she is taking it so seriously. She stands up confidently and explains that moments like this are full of romance. The word leaves him stunned. To her, romance is finding forgotten items, discovering swords hidden behind trees, and walking paths that only a few people know. It becomes clear that she lives in her own fantasy world, where the walk home itself is special and separate from both school and home. He admits that he does not really understand it, which only earns a brief look of disappointment before she calmly explains that if her activities became an official club, they could get a budget and expand. According to her, collecting romance on the way home is the true goal of the Hyper Go Home Club. He bluntly summarizes it as gathering romance in hopes of turning it into funding someday, which shows just how different their perspectives are. She immediately bristles at his wording and insists he is missing the point. To her, none of this is wasteful. Everything she does is a necessary expense. When he casually suggests calling it a romance club instead, she reacts as if he has said something unforgivable. She firmly believes hyper sounds much cooler and stronger, while he internally thinks the opposite. As she confidently walks ahead, he cannot help but wonder what goes on in her head. Between the swords, the dramatic names, and her seriousness, she feels more like a grade schooler than a high school student. In the end, all they are doing is going home, and he questions how that could be so fun. The world she sees clearly differs from his. She suddenly stops and remarks that being tall must be convenient, since it lets him notice things she cannot. He realizes this may be why she thought he suited her club. when she cheerfully repeats that he is suited for it. It is clear she has already forgotten her earlier explanation, making him think that by her logic, almost anyone would qualify. Without waiting, she confidently leads on again. He wonders where they are even going. Despite her nickname meaning "go straight home," the route feels anything but direct. The narrow path and tunnel-like passage make him uneasy, and his imagination runs wild with strange ideas. Growing nervous, he finally thinks this might be the moment he should head home instead. The go-home goddess calmly assures him they are almost there, saying it is just a little farther up the hill and that she wants to show him something. This does nothing to reassure him. He recalls rumors about strange recruitment tactics and realizes he has been following without thinking. Leaves crunch underfoot as he considers stopping, but before he can act, they reach the top of the hill. What greets them is a beautiful view of the city spread out below. His eyes widen in surprise as she scoops up a chubby, adorable cat and quietly admires the scenery. The cat lets out a lazy sound, and she proudly treats it like the boss of the area, prompting him to awkwardly greet it. He remembers the strange cat drawing on her club banner and finally understands where it came from. Holding the cat and looking out at the glowing city, he feels the wind as she casually picks a nearby flower. Watching the sunset, he reflects on how strange it feels to be doing nothing at this hour. Not long ago, he used to play soccer until dark every day. He wonders if she is enjoying her high school life, but she casually says it is completely normal to her. Mornings are unpleasant, classes are boring, homework is annoying, and the best part of the day is simply going home. When she asks about him, he admits he once had something to look forward to, but not anymore. She accepts this quietly, smiling as the breeze passes, then suddenly changes the subject by pointing out a praying mantis. He senses that she might be trying to be considerate in her own odd way, since she does not push him further. Stick Queen even shows the mantis to the boss cat, suggesting a dramatic showdown, which he immediately rejects in his head. She then remarks that even if he does not find anything special, just showing up every day is enough as long as he does not hate it. That, she says, is what makes high school fun and allows them to go home together. That last part catches him off guard. She finally asks his name, is surprised to hear that they share the same common surname, and quickly decides to call him Shun-kun. With an easy smile, she suggests they go home together again tomorrow. He half-heartedly insists he has not agreed to join her club, but the time spent walking home with her leaves a quiet impression. The next day, Senpai greets Shun with her usual bright energy, practically bursting out of the school gates with a compliment. As he starts to leave, he insists that she doesn't need to wait for him, but she refuses to hear it, insisting he's an important new member of her club. He groans, reminding her that he never agreed to join, yet her energy doesn't waver. Today, they're going home together again, and she's bouncing with excitement like it's some grand event. He wonders quietly why she always seems so thrilled about the simplest things. She leads him along the normal route home, which surprises him. He expects some unusual detour, but she quickly corrects him, announcing they need to stop somewhere first. Smiling mysteriously, she points out that it's Wednesday, and that brings them to a convenience store. Shun thinks, is she always this extra, or did I just unlock a new level? He blinks, half shocked. A convenience store? She explains that Wednesday is the toughest day of the week, and grabbing a small bite here is a key ritual of survival. It's the charming, rebellious sort of after-school event that was strictly forbidden in middle school. Yet now, as high school students and members of the Hyper Go Home Club, it's not just allowed, it's essential. He asks why Wednesday specifically, and she explains that the midweek slump demands a little indulgence to power through the remaining days. She even adds that it's important for club members to practice a sense of money management. The budget is strictly capped at 200 yen. He can't help but raise an eyebrow. The limit seems arbitrary, and he points out that buying from a supermarket might be cheaper. She waves off his objection with dramatic flair, insisting that there's a certain romance to stopping at the convenience store. She rants with the intensity of someone narrating a movie scene, describing how countless youth dramas and films immortalize these fleeting moments in front of convenience stores, where teenagers carve out tiny, irreplaceable adventures. Shun listens, part suspicious, part amused, realizing once again that she lives in her own little world of charm and fantasy, where even the mundane becomes magical. He thinks about her endless obsession with romance and shakes his head. There she goes again, completely immersed in her own little world. She bounces on the spot, suggesting they meet in the parking lot, soon to have a contest to see who can pick the better snack. He freezes at the word, contest? He's not even that hungry yet, and the idea of a competitive snack hunt makes him groan inwardly. Still, he can't help but remember how starving he used to be during his club days, and wonders what she will pick. She's crouched on the floor now, staring at the shelves. She strangely holds her head like she is watching a ghost. Shun suddenly asks her if everything is okay. She mutters something about inflation, pointing at a cream bun she'd wanted to buy. She treats convenience store shopping like the Hunger Games, but with cream buns. She crouches dramatically, inspecting each item like a culinary archaeologist uncovering ancient treasures. She checks every item and then the price tags. The price slightly exceeds her strict 200 yen budget, and she groans that she can't go home until she makes up her mind. Welcome to financial terror, Japanese style. Her dramatic lament makes him think she's tying her own noose, but he can't resist trying to help. Grumpy Guardian shows her a cheaper plain cream bread under 200 yen. She shakes her head. Plain bread is boring. She wants something that screams convenience store vibe, leaving him frustrated. He sighs, resigning himself to letting her choose while he buys his snack first and waits outside. With precision, he selects an American dog, 130 yen under budget, satisfying just enough for a light hunger and carrying that essential convenience store charm. He grins to himself, feeling victorious, declaring in his head that he's won with the power of freedom. Then he glances back at her. She's still not done, and he watches nervously. Finally, she picks something, and the store clerk asks if it needs heating. He realizes she's spending more effort than expected, worried she might exceed the budget. He can't help but marvel at how seriously she takes every small detail in her quirky, charming world. The budget baddie comes out, waving the food slightly in her hands, apologizing for keeping him waiting. She points at his snack and confirms it's an American dog. He nods, impressed, and wonders about the abbreviation. Then he glances at her, curious what she picked. She struggles a little to open her food, wincing at the heat, but once it's ready, she digs in with delight. He watches in mild disbelief as she's eating a hamburger steak, something that looks more like a proper home-cooked dish than a convenience store snack. He can't help but exclaim internally, questioning the point and the dedication to the convenience store vibe. She shrugs, admitting she couldn't resist the meat, and teases him about being a carnivore. Her childish munching and desire for rice alongside it make him frown. Why not just eat it at home? MC is silently taking notes. Do not underestimate the power of a girl and her convenience store romance. She stares at him seriously, asking if he'd share a bite, concerned about hygiene. He agrees, and she thanks him cheerfully, making him realize that, at least, she cares about small considerations. Sharing snacks like it's a high-stakes peace treaty. Naoki takes a big bite, savoring the sauce dramatically, leaving him awkwardly thinking about the effort he put into picking his snack. Then, generously, she offers him a bite from her chopsticks, and he blushes while accepting it. She continues commenting on how rice would go well, marveling at the taste, and finally declares the meal done, content and happy. Then she surprises him by handing over the Hyper Go Home Club activity journal, asking him to keep a record of their activities. He holds it, puzzled, and she explains that if they ever want club recognition, records are necessary. He doubts it will happen anytime soon, but she insists, showing that she already wrote an entry yesterday, and now it's his turn, encouraging him to stick numerous stickers on it. She compares it to Kanita's bike, and he stares, baffled, asking who that is. She smiles, telling him it's simple. He doesn't have to write much, just jot down whenever they've had fun. He stares at her, thinking about what having lots of fun today really means coming from her, and can't help but shout that he never agreed to join. She just laughs, teasing him that it's too late now that the journal is in his hands and it's officially his turn. Mr. Chillax stands in front of the school gate, looking around confused. Senpai isn't here today. He checks every corner, even peering into the bushes like she might be hiding there. He checks it like she is a worm, not a human. Usually she's waiting for him at the gate, so no Naoki-senpai ambush today means no Hyper Go Home Club activities either. He wonders why he doesn't just go home after all. He's not even part of the club. Just then, a cute, petite girl with a bright expression rushes toward him. She introduces herself as Miyamoto, a classmate of Choki-chan. Breathless, she delivers a message. Choki-chan got caught helping set up the Ball Games Festival, and they asked him to go home without her. Shun barely has time to process it before she waves goodbye and runs off. He tries to stop her and asks if Naoki-senpai really sent her. The girl nods and confirms that Choki-chan mentioned the tall boy at the front gate and asked her to pass along the message. He apologizes for making her come all this way, but she just smiles and shrugs, saying she was already running errands for her own club. Before leaving, she adds that she personally wanted him to join the boys' volleyball team because his height and cheerful personality are perfect for it. However, Choki-chan had already warned Miyamoto not to even try recruiting him. With that, the girl runs off, leaving him behind. Shun stands there, frozen in place, watching her disappear. For a brief moment, the usual chaos surrounding the Hyper Go Home Club comes to a stop. The next day, Miss Fantasy World is back in her usual spot at the school gate, waving her hands apologetically to Shun, who looks a little happy seeing her. She explains she's sorry for yesterday. Sensei had caught her because he thought she was trying to sneak away again. Shun shrugs it off, saying it's fine. She quickly brightens again, insisting they go home together today as well, and they start walking down the familiar route. Shun pulls out his phone, suggesting they exchange contact info so he doesn't have to rely on messages passed through others. Satu just smiles and says nothing. He feels awkward, as if he had asked something wrong. When he presses her on why she won't, she simply says no and shrugs off his follow-up questions. She doesn't want to follow ordinary ways of communication. As a member of the Hyper Go Home Club, she prefers the thrill of the unusual. Shun groans inwardly. Here it comes again, the romance she seems to find in every little thing. She declares there's a certain romance in not relying on convenience, then enthusiastically adds that she'd like to try using a pager, claiming her mom used to have one. Shun blinks. A pager. He doesn't even know what that is. Miss Sugarpop laughs lightly, explaining that pagers were the lifelines of early 90s youth, the way kids stayed connected before cell phones. Shun, both confused and intrigued, asks what one actually looks like, bracing himself for whatever strange idea she has next. She launches into her latest scheme with uncontainable excitement, explaining that a pager is a small rectangular device. Shun blinks at her description and mutters that it's far too little information to go on. He quickly searches online while she cheers him on, confirming that, yes, you can send messages from a payphone to a pager. Shun realizes she's fine using a phone for research, though it's technically his, and she eagerly explains how the numbers on the pager translate into text, like a secret code. Shun can't help but be impressed, asking if that's all people needed to communicate. She sighs dramatically, pointing out that all the pagers are out of service now, but insists that using one seems incredibly romantic. Then, her creativity takes flight. If they can't use pagers, why not try Morse code with their phone flashlights from classroom windows? Shun groans, suggesting they could just talk normally, but she's undeterred. She pauses, thinking, and her eyes light up like carrier pigeons. Sending messages via pigeons would be the pinnacle of romance, she insists, imagining the birds carrying their tiny handwritten notes. Shun can only watch as her imagination soars to another whimsical, slightly impossible adventure. Carrier pigeons? Cool. Let me just order one from Amazon Prime. Shun makes a strange face, clearly at a loss, and she immediately notices, asking what's wrong and declaring they must go catch some pigeons. He sighs internally, thinking there's no stopping her. He might as well go along with it. They walk toward Wasabiyama Park, where children are running around and playing, and an elderly man sits on a bench, tossing bits of food to the pigeons gathered around him. As they approach, she eagerly asks if they can actually catch one, while Shun quietly points out that maybe greeting someone properly comes first. The old man looks at them and chuckles, asking if they like pigeons too. She explains her grand plan. She wants to catch a pigeon and train it to become a carrier bird. The man laughs and shakes his head, telling them these local pigeons won't do. Carrier pigeons have to be trained from birth, he explains, calling the others dumbass pigeons. She shrugs at the revelation, muttering to the birds that she didn't know they were so foolish. The old man smiles warmly, teasing whether she's preparing for a pigeon race. Shun briefly explains that she just wants a way to communicate without using phones. The man laughs like a carefree child, amused by both the cleverness and strangeness of kids these days. He admits that he only recently got a phone himself and still does not know how to use it, and says he is impressed by how easily the younger generation handles such things. Shun hesitates for a moment before asking the old man how people used to arrange meetups before phones or even pagers existed. The man chuckles and explains that the usual way was simply to call someone's home phone or to set the next meeting when you actually saw them in person. That was the norm back then, deciding on the when and where as you went along. Shun presses further, worried that forgetting the time or place would mean never seeing the person again. The old man laughs heartily, admitting there were times people got stood up, but adds that you usually only make plans with people you really want to see, so somehow it always worked out. Our lad rolls his eyes at the simplicity of it and watches the man leave before turning back to Naoki. She stands in front of him with that confident, radiant aura, insisting that not knowing each other's contact info actually makes it more fun. If they stick to no phones at all, she says, they could find each other even if transported 30 years into the past. Shun can't help but admire her as she leans closer. He finally blurts out whether she really wants to go home together that much. She responds with her usual mix of enthusiasm and historical trivia, explaining that carrier pigeons have been used since 3000 BC and would be their best bet if they were sent back to ancient Egypt. He came here to go home, but now he is learning ancient Egyptian messaging techniques, but pragmatism wins out, and they agree to set aside the pigeons for now and figure out a method that works in modern times. They decide that if the other person doesn't show up within 20 minutes, the one who arrived first will go home anyway. It's the best compromise they can manage before they actually manage to get their hands on a carrier pigeon. Even with all the practicalities, Shun can't help but think that sparing no effort when it comes to romance is just classic Choki-chan. The scene shifts to sports day, the day of the Wasabiyama High School Ball Games Festival. Amid the lively atmosphere, a student notices Shun sitting out and asks why he is not playing. Shun explains that his leg is injured, specifically his kneecap, and that he is only helping as the scorekeeper for the basketball match. The boy seems surprised and wonders if Shun can still attend PE classes, and Shun admits that while he can participate lightly, going all out in sprints is still forbidden. The boy sympathizes, noting how troublesome knee injuries can be. Shun casually tells him he can just call him Shun, and the boy introduces himself as Haruto in return, even showing him his QR code before hesitating and admitting there is something he wants to ask. Haruto brings up the super cute girl who always goes home with Shun and wonders what her relationship to him is. Shun pauses, suddenly realizing that he himself thinks of his senpai as cute, then quickly clarifies that she is not his girlfriend. Haruto presses further, assuming that must mean they are just friends. Shun denies that too, awkwardly explaining that she is simply his senpai from the second year. Haruto looks even more confused and asks why, if she is neither his friend nor his girlfriend, the two of them always go home together. Shun tries to answer Haruto, but his words fall apart mid-thought, his explanation breaking before it even forms, when a familiar voice suddenly calls him. Naoki appears, calling out to him brightly and asking which games he is joining today. Shun startles at her sudden presence, while Haruto visibly blushes beside him. Shun quickly admits that he is not joining any games and asks what she is doing there instead. Naoki casually explains that she only came to pick up some equipment because she is about to play in a softball match next. The word softball hits Shun hard, and he freezes as memories surface of how unbelievably slow she runs, painfully, impressively slow, to the point where the word itself echoes in his mind. Unable to hold it in, Shun questions whether she can even play ball games at all, which earns him a mildly offended reaction. Naoki admits without shame that she has never played softball before, but she proudly adds that she learned just yesterday that after hitting the ball, you are supposed to run to the right. This revelation sends Shun into full panic mode as he realizes she learned this information only a day before actually playing. Before he can spiral further, Haruto steps in, introducing himself as Shun's friend and mentioning that he is in the baseball club, offering to teach her the rules. Instead of accepting, she immediately tries to recruit him into the Hyper Go Home Club, casually dismissing the baseball club as if it were nothing. Shun cuts in, horrified, thinking she is asking far too much, while Haruto gets stuck on the sheer absurdity of the club's name. As Haruto tries to explain everything clearly, Naoki listens with intense focus, then asks a very specific question about what she should do after hitting the ball and running to the right. The situation quickly turns chaotic in a familiar way, and Shun once again realizes that whenever Naoki is involved, even a simple sports festival never stays normal. Haruto demonstrates how to run and step on first base with exaggerated movements to make it easier to understand. The professor of patience watches in disbelief as the explanation somehow turns into a full lesson, and before he knows it, they have wandered into a classroom. Naoki listens seriously, then asks what happens if she cannot hit the ball at all. Haruto freezes before rushing to explain strikeouts, which only creates more confusion. When he mentions the bench, she innocently imagines a park bench, forcing him to hurriedly clarify. He adds that there are cases where a player can advance without hitting the ball, which only sparks her curiosity. She wonders if that means she can just stand there holding the bat. The MC thinks that in the blink of an eye, he has become part of a full softball tutorial complete with dramatic hand gestures. Haruto struggles to explain strikes and balls, growing more flustered and nearly in tears, until Shun steps in and asks her to stop pushing him. Naoki calmly insists she was just asking questions and confidently claims she understands now, comparing the game to a board game where the player does not roll the dice. Shun agrees out of habit, then quickly adds that scoring happens when the next batter hits well and the runner makes it home. Haruto hesitates and suggests giving a more detailed explanation, but Shun waves it off, knowing she would not listen anyway. At that moment, Naoki's eyes drift to Shun's bandaged leg, and she quietly stares at it for a few seconds. When Shun asks what is wrong, she brushes it off and suddenly declares herself fully ready. She runs off once again, awkward and slow as ever, announcing that she is heading off to win. Haruto watches her go and questions whether that half-hearted explanation was really enough. Shun answers calmly that it is not relevant because she would never listen in the first place. On the other side of the school grounds, the match between Class 2B and Class 3D officially begins. Cheers echo across the playground, and voices loudly encourage Choki-chan to do her best. Naoki steps up to the batter's box for the first time, gripping the bat with both hands. She studies it seriously, surprised by how heavy it feels, and swings it once just to test the weight. Her player card flashes on the scoreboard, showing her name, class, and her famous catchphrase about wanting to go home, along with the Hyper Go Home Club written proudly beneath it. Across from her stands the pitcher from Class 3D, Ikuta from the dance club, a flashy gal who has no experience with softball either. She winds up and throws, and Naoki freezes completely as the ball flies past her. The call goes against her. Naoki stares at the ball in disbelief, thinking about how thin and fast it looks. Another pitch comes, and again she does nothing as it is caught cleanly. She wonders how anyone is supposed to hit something so small with such a heavy bat, and briefly questions why humans even invented this sport. Voices from her team shout for her to keep her eyes forward, snapping her back to reality just as the next pitch arrives. The final pitch passes, and instructions are shouted for her to advance to first base. She does not fully understand what that means, but she starts running anyway, pleased with herself for being allowed to move one space forward. The spectators exchange uneasy looks, realizing she clearly has no idea how the rules work. Is this really what high school is supposed to look like, or did I just enter a live anime? The next batter steps up, Maeda from the literature club, who looks extremely nervous despite visiting the batting cages just the day before. This time, the bat connects cleanly with the ball, sending it flying far beyond expectations. Panic erupts among the opposing team as players shout warnings and scramble into position. Fielders from the Wind Music Club and Kendo Club rush to intercept, yelling directions as the ball sails across the field. A small scream cuts through the field as chaos follows. Both teams are clearly full of beginners, and once again, the ball is missed. Naoki, who is supposed to be running, stays where she is and claps happily, impressed by how nice the hit looked. She beams with pride, cheering as if the play is already over. A teammate yells at her in panic, reminding her that the team just got a hit. Ishida from the tennis club waves frantically from first base, urging her to run. Voices pile on from every direction, shouting that it is a hit and that she needs to move. Naoki finally starts running, but at her usual painfully slow pace. She panics mid-run, wondering how many bases she is supposed to pass, while the chatter around the field grows louder. The opposing team fumbles badly. Unsure where to throw the ball, someone shouts that the runner is already rounding third base, and shock spreads across the field. Spectators gasp as Naoki continues forward at the same slow speed. Some doubt she can make it, while others scream encouragement, telling her to run straight to home plate. The words home plate finally clicked in her head. She remembers what Shun explained earlier about scoring by reaching it. Suddenly, her expression changes. She bursts forward with unexpected speed, shouting about wanting to go home as if her life depended on it. The crowd freezes in disbelief as she suddenly accelerates, then erupts when she makes it safely and scores. Cheers explode across the field, celebrating the miracle run. Later, on the way home, Shun casually asks how the game went. Naoki answers with her head down, admitting they lost in the second round and calling it a shame. Shun simply acknowledges it without much reaction. They stop in front of a vending machine, and Naoki asks for a drink. After he agrees, she unexpectedly hands him a cola. Even though they lost overall, she explains that they won the first round because of him, calling it a small gift. Shun insists that he did not really do anything, but she immediately credits him for explaining the rules in the first place. Walking Confusion brushes it off and says that the credit should go to Haruto instead. Miss Chaos pauses, repeats the name as if testing it, then keeps drinking her cola. She happily notes how cola tastes best after exercise, completely absorbed in the moment. Shun panics internally. After all the effort Haruto put into explaining everything, she seems to have already forgotten about him. The thought hits him hard, and he feels bad on Haruto's behalf. Naoki finally remembers, vaguely identifying Haruto as the baseball club guy. She admits that during the entire game, all she could think about was what Shun had told her earlier. That makes Shun stop short and blush. Naoki casually adds that the explanation probably did not help that much anyway. Shun immediately objects in his head, convincing himself that it doesn't matter. After all, this is the Hyper Go Home Club, and somehow that explanation fits perfectly within its strange logic. The scene shifts to the next day, and rain falls during school hours, making the morning unusually gloomy. Naoki shows up later than Shun, which immediately surprises him. She tells him that she has been waiting for him for a while. Our lazy king feels a little blush as she tells him if he has an umbrella, and casually mentions that she has been waiting for him. Caught off guard, he nods hesitantly and agrees to share. It turns out she did not bring an umbrella at all, and she thanks him without much concern. She feels clearly pleased that he is there. Shun tells her about how the weather is supposed to stay bad all week, then casually admits that she never checks weather reports. Instead, she claims to predict the weather by reading the wind and watching the clouds, finding romance in things like that, and even comparing herself to a cool navigator. She's predicting the weather like a pirate navigator, and I'm the unlucky first mate. Shun finds it troublesome and quietly doubts whether that method works at all, especially after seeing her get soaked. On the way home, they walk under a single umbrella. Naoki looks visibly happy, enjoying the rain, while Shun walks stiffly and straight ahead. When he hands the umbrella more properly to her, she apologizes lightly for imposing. He asks if they are skipping detours because of the rain, and she decides to keep things simple today since she is using his umbrella. As they walk, she points out that his shoulder is getting wet and suggests moving closer. Shun blushes immediately, feeling awkward about his height, but she tells him not to worry, reminding him that it is his umbrella anyway. She matter-of-factly explains how umbrellas never protect properly when held alone, especially the feet. As they walk closer together, their shoulders brush under the steady drip of rain, and Naoki quietly starts wondering if umbrellas could be shaped differently, once again drifting into her strange little world of ideas. She starts pushing her strange ideas out into the world. She casually adds that they could even get a patent for the idea, imagining an umbrella that folds up and stores on the back, freeing both hands. Shun immediately thinks it sounds unnecessary and suggests that a raincoat would solve everything. Only she could make walking under an umbrella feel like a crowded obstacle course. Naoki quietly argues that a raincoat cannot protect her face, which leads him to suggest adding a brim like a hat. She mutters to herself, then concludes that the classic rainy day mom style might actually be the best solution after all. Shun agrees without hesitation. Suddenly, she gets excited again and suggests that since they are sharing the umbrella, they might stay drier if they walk front and back instead. Before he can react, she steps right in front of him and starts walking proudly, clearly pleased with her own idea. Shun feels extremely embarrassed but tries to stay calm, telling her to match his pace since his legs are longer. She struggles to keep up, loses balance, and trips when their feet collide. In the next moment, both of them fall, with Shun landing on his back and Naoki ending up on top of him. She laughs awkwardly while Shun turns bright red, internally scolding her for not watching where she is going. She quickly gets up and apologizes, admitting it was her fault. Shun checks if she is okay, brushing it off at first, but then Naoki suddenly notices his injured leg. Her expression changes, and she steps closer to ask if it is right. Why does she care about his leg, but does not notice the pond forming on his shoes? As she does, Shun feels a strange sensation spread through his body, thrown off by the genuine concern in her eyes. She holds Shun's hand as he stands, and he shakes his legs to show that he is fine. She keeps holding on, refusing to let go. He insists that he's really okay and asks her not to, but she feels bad and apologizes quietly. He can't stop staring at her, caught off guard by her concern. Then she announces that she will hold the umbrella. Shun is shocked and stares at her as they start walking. He spots a giant snail on the ground and points it out, marveling at its size. She doesn't even glance at it, leaving him feeling a little sad. The snail is bigger than his chances of getting a straight answer from her today. Her expression seems upset, though he isn't sure why. Later at home, Shun hangs his wet clothes in front of the blower and keeps thinking about her. It's the first time he's seen her so down. He wonders if he ever told her about his leg injury, but he can't remember. He has told too many people already. Still, he thinks about how she worries for others, even though she usually teases them. She doesn't need to worry that much. His butt hurts more than his leg from the fall. The thought briefly panics him, as he wonders what he would do if she decided she didn't want to go home together anymore. He immediately scolds himself for the thought. The next day, it rains again. She greets him and says she brought a folding umbrella, apologizing for the previous day. He simply acknowledges it. She rustles in her bag and pulls out the umbrella, ready to walk with him once more. Shun hesitantly mentions that he brought a bigger umbrella than yesterday's. Naoki looks surprised. He opens the umbrella, realizing that now they won't get wet even walking side by side. After that, they walk together under the rain, perfectly shielded, while Shun blushes the entire time. Naoki smiles, clearly pleased, enjoying the moment. She admits she can never close a folding umbrella properly once it's opened. Even a folding umbrella can't contain the disaster she brings. Shun quietly says he knew that would happen. They continue walking, the umbrella keeping them dry, and the space between them feels like a slightly crowded road home, small yet intimate, as their hearts drift quietly closer without either saying much. The next day, rain clouds hang low over Wasabiyama, giving the school a gray, sleepy feel. Senpai reminds him that exams are coming soon and asks if he's been studying, but he looks straight ahead, avoiding her eyes, and returns the question. She nudges him lightly, warning him not to look away and explaining how students with bad grades get trapped in endless supplementary lessons, unable to go home. He asks if she struggles with schoolwork, and she admits math isn't her strength, though she excels in liberal arts. He quietly notes that math isn't really his thing either. Without missing a beat, she suggests they study together, leading them to the city library. The hot young MC is caught off guard, surprised that she comes here too. She explains she only comes after class now, drawn to the library's quiet atmosphere, especially as the evening light fades, a sort of romantic vibe that he can't quite grasp. Inside, the library is packed with rows of books, the scent of old paper filling the air. She picks a spot, tells him to sit, and disappears briefly. He wonders where she's gone, then notices her return with a book she's been eager to read. She smiles, excited, but he panics slightly, worried about studying. She shrugs, treating it as a casual reading session before settling into the quiet corner. Even surrounded by books and deadlines, she seems completely at ease, leaving him to wonder whether he's supposed to focus on exams or just enjoy the strange, carefree rhythm she brings into the space. Before getting started, she asks what genres he usually reads. He admits he likes science fiction. She explains that she used to enjoy mystery novels, especially murder cases, but now finds herself drawn to science fiction, particularly stories describing humanity's extinction. He feels a bit taken aback, silently wondering if she really chooses books based on how many people die. She brushes it off as just a personal preference in entertainment. He decides it's time to start studying, settling into his books. Minutes pass, and he notices her head tilting slightly. She's fallen asleep almost immediately. He stares in disbelief. What exactly was the point of coming to the library? Less than half an hour in, and she's out cold, carefree as ever. The cutie Naoki came to the library to study, but somehow it feels like he is babysitting a nap queen. Stretching, he picks up the Hyper Go Home Club journal. He recalls her earlier words about only writing in it once and realizes it would be pointless if he's the only one contributing. Flipping through the pages, he sees her entries and quietly begins thinking about what to write for today. He opens the club journal and flips through the pages, eyes scanning each entry. April 12th notes the arrival of a new member in the Hyper Go Home Club, tall enough to inspire a little envy. A literal big newcomer, it says, with little expectation for high school life. Hopefully, he enjoys the time spent going home together. April 23rd to May 18th recounts a trip to the park to catch pigeons with Shun. He didn't seem excited at first, but he came along anyway. Maybe he's actually starting to enjoy their after-school adventures. May 20th covers the Ball Games Festival. They played softball, and thanks to Shun teaching the rules, they won. The note mentions he stopped saying he wasn't part of the club, hinting that he might finally be feeling like a real member. June 16th talks about Shun bringing a large umbrella. He seemed considerate, and as a member of the Hyper Go Home Club, the writer was eager to explore sharing it, thinking a long rainy season might make this useful. June 1st makes him blush a little. It's all about him. He thinks to himself that this feels more like a diary than a journal and wonders if anyone could actually understand what the club does from these entries. Liberal arts, he remembers, were supposed to be her strength. For now, the journal notes, today's focus is simple. They went to the library to study. Senpai read a book for a bit and then promptly fell asleep without actually studying. He keeps reading, realizing she writes about him a lot. He notices phrases about him finally feeling like a member and thinks silently, don't just put that in on your own. He wonders if she's truly happy to have a kuhai and admits to himself that rejecting her offer would have been too much trouble. He watches her sleeping, thinking about how she probably went home alone the entire last year before meeting him, or maybe not. He didn't sign up for a study session, but he signed up for a staring contest with a sleeping senpai. She enjoys reading stories about humanity going extinct, so loneliness doesn't seem to bother her much. He wonders which is more fun for her, last year or now. He keeps staring at her peaceful face as he slowly leans back, thinking she looks a bit like an ostrich with her head tucked. Closing his eyes, he settles beside her. Their heads face each other, and for a moment, the world outside the library doesn't matter. As the evening light shifts, he opens his eyes to find her watching him with a huge smile. His face turns bright red, caught off guard. Twilight hits, and suddenly the library is peak choky energy. Library Sloth seems pleased and satisfied, as if the library at twilight is suddenly the best place on earth. He mutters internally that it's not that great, since he couldn't focus on studying. She says she made a lot of progress, at least in her dreams. He picks up the club journal, hesitating, and wonders if it's okay to write that he ended up falling asleep too. He wonders why I feel like her dreams are more productive than my actual study session. She starts gathering her things, brushing off the moment, with a carefree time to go home, while reading aloud about yet another civilization wiped out. He just stares, half amused, half exasperated, caught between the strange calm of the library and the chaotic charm of her presence.
Here I am, know it's been a while.